Hello, I'm Hope Logan. I am an actor on Bold and the Beautiful, and many people really love both me and our Bold and the Beautiful drama. So I've come here to share updates about my beloved Bold and the Beautiful. Everyone, please subscribe and support me. If you do, I will keep coming every day with new updates for you. For a long time, Hope Logan Spencer had been carrying a secret heavy enough to change everything around her, and now, at last, the moment she had been quietly dreading had finally arrived. The carefully hidden project she had kept locked away from the world could remain in the shadows, no longer forcing her to step forward and reveal the brand new Logan fashion line she had been secretly building behind closed doors. It was a moment that should have felt triumphant, a celebration of independence and creativity finally brought to life, yet the atmosphere surrounding it was anything but peaceful. Deep down, Hope already knew what was coming next. The decision she had made would send shockwaves through Forrester Creations, and standing at the center of that storm, she could already feel the crushing anxiety beginning to tighten around her chest. This wasn't simply the launch of a fashion line, it was the beginning of a war, and Hope knew the fallout would change everything. Although Deacon Sharp was technically credited as the designer attached to the project, everyone close to the truth understood exactly who the real architect behind this vision had been. This entire collection, every stitch, every concept, every creative direction had been born from Hope herself. It was her imagination that shaped the designs. It was her passion that guided Deacon throughout the process. This wasn't simply a collaboration hidden behind clever branding. It was Hope finally reclaiming ownership of her own creativity after years of feeling trapped under the weight of other people controlling her future. Katie Logan Spencer recognized exactly what this moment represented, and when the time finally came to unveil the collection to the world, she wasted no time stepping forward and proudly announcing what no one at Forrester ever expected to hear. The launch had a name now, Hope by Logan. And the moment those words echoed through the room, everything changed. The reaction inside Forrester Creations was immediate and explosive. Faces that moments earlier held confidence and certainty suddenly turned pale with disbelief. Eyes widened across the room. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. A wave of stunned silence swept through the building as the horrifying realization began settling over everyone present. Hope Logan, someone deeply connected to the company for so long, had made an unthinkable decision. She had walked away from Forrester. Not only had she abandoned the fashion empire tied so closely to her family, but she had secretly aligned herself with Katie's competing fashion house instead. For those inside Forrester, it didn't simply feel like an employee leaving the company. It felt like betrayal, a deep personal betrayal that no one saw coming, and judging by the collective gasps and dropped jaws spreading throughout the room, it was very clear this decision was not going to be forgiven easily. Behind all the dramatic headlines and corporate outrage, however, stood a woman carrying far more emotional weight than anyone could fully understand. In an interview with TV Insider, actress Annika Noel opened up about the complicated emotional storm Hope has been struggling through during this entire journey. From the outside, some may see Hope's actions as bold, rebellious, or even selfish, but beneath the surface lies a woman torn apart by conflicting emotions she can barely keep under control. On one hand, Hope has finally been given the golden opportunity she has desperately needed for years, a chance to build something that belongs entirely to her, free from constantly living under Forrester control. For the first time in what feels like forever. She has the freedom to stand on her own. Yet with that freedom comes an unbearable cost because Hope understands all too well that this decision doesn't only affect business. It cuts directly into one relationship she treasures most, the bond she shares with her mother. According to Annika Noel, Brooke Logan Forrester has always been the single reason Hope stayed loyal to Forrester Creations far longer than she truly wanted to. If Brooke had not been part of that world, Hope likely would have left the company a very long time ago. As Noel revealed, Brooke was the emotional anchor holding Hope in place even when everything around her felt unbearable. The actress explained that if Hope didn't feel such an overwhelming need for her mother's approval, she likely would have walked away long ago, especially after the painful way she had been treated following the devastating fallout surrounding the company coup. That chapter left deep scars. It damaged Hope's confidence, shook her sense of belonging, and left her feeling increasingly isolated within the very company she had once considered home. Yet despite all of that pain, she stayed, not for herself, but because leaving meant hurting Brooke. And now that fear has finally become reality. Because Brooke is not simply disappointed, she is deeply wounded by what Hope has done. For Brooke, this betrayal cuts far deeper than corporate politics or professional disagreements. She had been genuinely excited about Hope returning fully to Forrester Creations and standing beside her once again. In Brooke's mind, the future had already begun falling back into place. Mother and daughter would rebuild their professional bond. Hope would continue moving forward with hope for the future. And together, they would strengthen their legacy within the Forrester empire. But all of that shattered in an instant. Instead of embracing that future, Hope had secretly aligned herself with Logan and completely abandoned hope for the future without warning. Brooke never saw it coming, and now the emotional damage left behind feels impossible to ignore. The betrayal stings not because Hope chose independence, but because she chose secrecy, forcing Brooke to discover the truth in the worst possible way. Annika Noel reflected further on how deeply connected Hope still feels to Forrester, despite everything that has happened there. There is comfort in familiarity. Years of memories, experiences, victories, and heartbreak all tie Hope emotionally to that company in ways difficult to simply erase overnight. Leaving Forrester is not something she takes lightly. Yet, despite all that nostalgia, the real source of Hope's emotional struggle isn't the company itself. It is Brooke. Every step Hope takes away from Forrester feels like another crack forming within the fragile mother-daughter relationship she values so deeply. The pain of disappointing Brooke weighs heavier on Hope than the consequences of leaving the company. More than anything, she fears that this decision may permanently damage the trust between them, and that possibility is haunting her with every passing moment. That emotional burden has already begun manifesting physically. Noel described how Hope has recently been suffering through what can only be described as mini panic attacks, small but powerful moments where fear and anxiety completely overwhelm her ability to stay composed. The confidence that once defined Hope seems to be fading. The woman who once carried herself with certainty now feels shaken, vulnerable, and deeply uncertain about what tomorrow may bring. Launching the fashion line was supposed to represent empowerment, but instead, Hope now finds herself bracing for consequences she knows are unavoidable. The fashion show may have been a success, but the celebration is short-lived because she understands exactly what comes next. Soon she will be forced to stand face to face with Brooke, and when that confrontation finally happens, there will be nowhere left to hide from her mother's anger. Still, despite everything crumbling around her emotionally, there remains a quiet possibility that this painful chapter could become the beginning of something transformative. Annika Noel admitted that Hope seems to have lost a part of herself recently, describing it as losing some of the sparkle that once made her so vibrant. But perhaps this new move with Logan could reignite something inside her that has been dormant for far too long. Maybe stepping away from Forrester's shadow will finally allow Hope to rediscover her own strength. Maybe this risky leap into the unknown will help her reclaim the voice she has spent so long suppressing. Sometimes breaking away from what feels safe is the only path toward discovering who you truly are. And perhaps for Hope, this painful rebellion may become the first step toward rebuilding herself stronger than ever before. Of course, Katie Logan Spencer's role in all of this introduces another complicated layer to the unfolding drama. While Katie may have certain ulterior motives when it comes to pushing Hope towards success under the Logan fashion house, one truth remains undeniable. She genuinely cares about her niece. Beneath the business strategy and ambition lies real love and concern for Hope's future. Katie sees the enormous potential inside Hope and wants to help guide her toward becoming the person she is capable of becoming. This partnership isn't simply about competing against Forrester Creations. It is about giving Hope the opportunity she has desperately needed, a chance to evolve, to mature, and to finally build an identity separate from the expectations constantly placed upon her. For the first time in years, Hope has someone actively encouraging her to stand on her own rather than simply fitting into someone else's system. Even so, fear continues to consume her. Annika Noel admitted that Hope is absolutely terrified about what comes next, and understandably so. She knows she has risked nearly everything: her career, her family relationships, her standing within the fashion world, and perhaps most painfully, her connection with Brooke now hangs dangerously in the balance. Yet, buried underneath all that fear exists another feeling Hope cannot ignore, a quiet instinct telling her that sometimes the greatest rewards only come when everything important is placed on the line. Maybe risking so much will ultimately prove worth it. Maybe stepping into uncertainty is exactly what her future requires. The terror is real, but so is the possibility that this decision could finally lead her toward the life she was always meant to build for herself. But before any rewards can arrive, the storm waiting ahead must first be faced. The bold and the beautiful spoilers reveal that the devastating Logan announcement is only the beginning of the emotional chaos still to come. Tensions are rising rapidly, and all signs point toward explosive confrontations brewing between Hope and Brooke in the days ahead. These are not going to be small disagreements or temporary misunderstandings easily pushed aside. Years of complicated emotions, buried resentment, shattered expectations, and painful betrayal are about to rise violently to the surface. Mother and daughter now stand on opposite sides of a decision that may forever change their relationship. And as the fallout begins spreading through every corner of their lives, one thing has become painfully clear. Hope Logan may have finally found the courage to choose herself, but that courage is about to come at a devastating emotional cost, unlike anything she has faced before. As the reality of Hope Logan Spencer's decision continues spreading through the halls of Forrester Creations like a shockwave that refuses to settle, the emotional damage left in its wake is only beginning to reveal itself. What started as a bold career move, something Hope believed might finally give her the independence she had been starving for, has now transformed into a deeply personal conflict capable of tearing apart the fragile relationships she has spent years trying to protect. Inside the glamorous world of high fashion, betrayal is nothing new, but this situation carries a far heavier emotional weight because this isn't simply business. Families are entangled in every decision. Emotions bleed into boardroom politics, and choices that seem professional on the surface often leave wounds far deeper than anyone expects. Hope understood this when she made her move, yet understanding the consequences and actually living through them are two entirely different battles. Now, with the truth exposed and the silence broken forever, the storm she feared has officially begun gathering around her. For Hope, the quiet moments following the announcement may be proving even harder than the decision itself. There is something terrifying about finally crossing a line you can never uncross, about realizing the life you once knew can never simply return to normal, no matter how much you wish otherwise. In those private moments alone, away from cameras, away from fashion executives, away from family expectations, Hope is left sitting with the crushing awareness that her choice has now permanently shifted the balance of her world. For so long, she existed within the familiar safety of Forrester Creations, even when that environment often left her feeling overlooked, manipulated, or emotionally exhausted. It was a complicated kind of comfort, painful at times, but predictable. Now that safety net has disappeared completely, in choosing freedom, she has willingly stepped into uncertainty, and the loneliness attached to that kind of decision is beginning to settle heavily on her heart. Yet, perhaps the most devastating part of this entire ordeal remains the inevitable confrontation waiting between Hope and Brooke Logan Forrester. More than anyone else in her life, Brooke's opinion has always carried enormous power over Hope, shaping decisions both large and small for years. It was never simply about seeking approval in the way children often do. For Hope, Brooke represented stability, love, family loyalty, and emotional grounding in a world that often felt chaotic and unpredictable. Every major choice Hope made was in some way filtered through the question of how Brooke would feel about it. That emotional connection has defined so much of her identity for years, which makes this betrayal feel even more painful now. Because despite choosing a path she genuinely believes is necessary for her future, Hope cannot silence the guilt tearing through her, knowing her mother now feels deeply betrayed. Brooke, meanwhile, finds herself blindsided by a heartbreak she never imagined facing from her own daughter. For years, she believed that no matter what professional conflicts existed inside Forrester Creations, her bond with Hope remained unshakable. Even during difficult times, Brooke always assumed they were ultimately standing on the same side, moving toward a future where mother and daughter would continue strengthening both their personal relationship and professional legacy together. That vision now lies shattered before her. The pain Brooke feels is not rooted solely in Hope leaving Forrester. It comes from the secrecy, the deception, and the devastating realization that her own daughter no longer trusted her enough to share such a life-changing decision openly. That betrayal cuts with brutal precision, leaving Brooke questioning whether the emotional connection she thought they shared was ever as strong as she believed. And somewhere in the middle of all this emotional wreckage stands Katie Logan Spencer, watching events unfold with complicated emotions of her own. On one hand, Katie understands exactly how explosive this move has become and recognizes the damage already spreading through the family because of it. Yet, at the same time, she firmly believes Hope needed this opportunity. Katie has watched Hope spend years shrinking herself, compromising her ambitions, and quietly enduring situations that repeatedly chipped away at her confidence. She knows Hope needed something bigger than simply continuing to exist under Forrester control. Perhaps there are strategic motivations behind Katie's involvement, ambitions tied to elevating Logan's presence in the fashion world through Hope's success, but beneath all those business calculations remains genuine affection. Katie wants Hope to succeed not simply because it benefits the company, but because she truly believes Hope deserves a future where her own talent finally takes center stage. Still, the emotional scars left by Hope's past experiences at Forrester cannot simply vanish overnight. The painful memories remain fresh, particularly the humiliation and emotional fallout surrounding the company coup that left Hope feeling isolated in ways few fully understood. Those experiences fundamentally changed her. They planted seeds of self-doubt that slowly began growing larger over time, weakening the confidence that once made her feel unstoppable. Even now, despite launching an entirely new fashion line built around her own creative identity, that insecurity remains present. The anxiety attacks Annika Noel referenced are evidence of a woman still struggling internally, someone fighting to believe in herself after years of feeling diminished. Outwardly, Hope may appear brave and determined, but internally she continues fighting battles no one else can fully see. Perhaps that is why this new chapter feels so significant. It is not merely about launching clothing designs or stepping into a new business venture. This represents something far deeper than career ambition. It is about reclaiming identity. For too long, Hope existed inside systems built by other people, forced to navigate expectations that rarely prioritized what she truly wanted for herself. At Logan, things feel different. For the first time in years, she has the chance to build something where her own voice carries real weight. Every creative decision reflects her own instincts rather than someone else's approval. Every success moving forward will belong to her in a way Forrester never truly allowed. Yet transformation rarely arrives without pain, and unfortunately for Hope, this personal evolution requires sacrificing relationships she never wanted to damage. There is also the painful possibility that Brooke's anger may evolve into something even more destructive than temporary disappointment. The upcoming confrontations between mother and daughter promise to bring years of suppressed tension violently to the surface. Hurt feelings surrounding professional loyalty will collide with deeper emotional wounds rooted in family expectations and unresolved resentment. Brooke may see Hope's actions as selfish rebellion. Hope may feel Brooke has spent too long prioritizing Forrester loyalty over understanding her daughter's emotional struggles. Neither woman is entering this confrontation from a place of calm understanding. Both carry pain, both feel betrayed, both believe the other has failed to understand what truly matters. And when emotions this raw begin colliding, reconciliation becomes far more difficult than either may realize. At the center of everything stands a woman desperately hoping her fear will eventually prove worthwhile. Hope knows the price she is paying right now feels enormous. She has jeopardized family trust, triggered corporate outrage, and placed herself directly in the crossfire of consequences she cannot fully predict. But deep within her, there remains a quiet belief that this gamble could ultimately change her life forever. Sometimes growth demands sacrifice, sometimes becoming the person you are meant to become requires walking away from places that no longer nurture who you truly are.